Good morning. Can people hear me? Just checking out with the mic. Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you. Might as well begin. I think we're maybe just a couple minutes late. Thank you for taking the time to join us and to learn a little bit about FLYHT Aerospace. I appreciate your time. And my name is Kent Jacobs. I'm President, Interim CEO at FLYHT. I'm here with Alana Forbes, our CFO. So hopefully maybe tomorrow we're going to have a chance to meet a few of you and go into a little bit more detail around the presentation that we're going to go through today. There are some forward-looking statements. Just like to draw your attention to that. So a little bit about FLYHT. FLYHT is a global leader in the aerospace industry. We've been around since 1998. That means we've got 25 years of history in the industry. And that's something to remember. That's something to pay attention to, because a lot of companies that come into this industry don't last that time. They don't make it through that first 5, 10, 15 years. FLYHT has a pedigree. We've established that, and we're well respected within the industry. We're headquartered in Calgary. We have offices in China, Southeast Asia, in the US as well. And our largest external office is in Europe, in Frankfurt, where we have 20 people. We recently acquired a company in Frankfurt. They became part of FLYHT. They helped us expand our footprint out there, and they give us that presence in the European market that's much easier to work with. We provide solutions to the airline industry. We develop SaaS products. We develop aviation, avionics, hardware that goes onto the aircraft. We do the STCs, the supplemental type certificates, to put those products on board the aircraft. So we're a full-stop shop. We do the development of the hardware, the software, and we can get it installed on the aircraft. The focus, FLYHT is moving towards more of a SaaS model. We're changing our direction to become more represented in the SaaS marketplace. We like those recurring revenues. We like the flow of data that flows that way. You can see our capitalization table, 91-cent share price. We have about 39 million shares, market cap of 35 million. We're inside ownership of about 5% and institutional ownership of about 23%. If we look at the last 24 years, where is FLYHT? Well, our last, this is kind of where we've got to at this stage. We have last 12 months, 25 million in revenue. Our backlog at the end of Q2 in 23 just passed was 21 million. Our year-to-date SaaS revenues, 45% of our total revenues. And that's what we're trying to grow, right? We're expanding in those SaaS opportunities. We're making that larger. We're focusing on those. We like those recurring revenues. Our SaaS gross margins are high. We maintain 60% on that. And as we're developing the new SaaS products, we're not doing it at the expense of that gross margin. We want to build the products that the airlines get used to. They get hooked on them. They need them to run their operations. We want them to be a high margin for us. We have a high retention rate. FLYHT has been putting product on board aircraft and providing services to the airline industry for 20 years, 95% retention rate. One of the beautiful things about an aircraft, Boeing or an Airbus, Bombardier, Embraer, those types of aircraft, they have a long lifetime. They have a long lifespan. So when you get a product on an aircraft, especially if you get it at the time the aircraft is manufactured, you've got a long time where that airplane can be generating revenue for you. Even if the aircraft changes ownership, right? If it goes through a leasing company to a different airline, not a problem. The product is still on board the aircraft. We have a pipeline of opportunity, about 79 million right now. I mentioned the supplemental type certificates. This is a really important thing to understand about FLYHT Aerospace. We do our own supplemental type certificates. So these are the certifications from the FAA, Transport Canada, EASA in Europe. When you put a product on board an aircraft, you have to get certification from the government that you're allowed to actually modify the aircraft and install the product. That's what we do. We have that internally in our organization. We have an aircraft certification group to do that type of work. And we just passed, or a little while ago, we passed 5 million hours of voice and data service. So we've been, it's a reflection again of the 24 years. We have 4,000 of our avionics products flying around the world. The bulk of those, the vast majority of those are on Boeing and Airbus aircraft. That's the type of airline that we target. If we look at some of the trends that are affecting FLYHT in a really positive way, there are 3 things that really stand out in the last little while. Technology obsolescence. This is a big issue for FLYHT in a positive way. 5G is the logo here because the 2G, 3G, the LTE networks around the world, they're beginning to be shut down. And as those networks are shut down, the airlines are not able to transmit the data that they would normally transmit when the aircraft lands. Sorry. So this is an opportunity for FLYHT. This is a huge opportunity in that we are developing our third generation AFIRS unit. That's our third generation of the avionics product to take advantage of this 5G capability that is now available to us. And the beauty of this is that airlines are not in control. They're not in control to stop the transfer to the 5G networks. The 5G networks are being driven by Verizon, by AT&T, by TELUS, Rogers, Bell. They're the ones that are changing the networks that airlines have to adapt. They can't push back to Transport Canada or the FAA because Verizon and AT&T don't care. And if the largest incumbent products out there that we are looking to replace are using that 2G, 3G technology right now, and they are going to go silent over the next few years. I'll talk some more about that's a theme that'll come up throughout this presentation. The real-time aircraft analysis, that's bread and butter for FLYHT. That's what we've been doing for 20 years. So we take the data, it's typically the black box data that's recorded into the flight recorder. We look at that data, we look at additional data from the engines, from the hydraulic systems, from the navigation systems. We take all that information in real time into our avionics product on board the aircraft. We analyze it. We draw conclusions about the state of the aircraft, and we send that information to the ground as needed or requested by the airline. That gives the airline an operational advantage as they know more information about their aircraft in real time. This is the bread and butter for FLYHT. This is what we've been doing for a long time. We're not backing away from it. What we are discovering is that with the 5G capability of sending more data, less inexpensively, when the aircraft is on the ground through the 5G networks, it gives us a larger basis to work with data on the ground. FLYHT has also been in the weather business for a long time with other solutions. We provided what's called ABOs, aircraft-based observations that are taken as an aircraft climbs and as aircraft descends, and even in en route phases of flight. We take the weather information that is generated by the aircraft, wind speed, wind direction, temperatures, airspeed, things like that, and we send that to the ground. We send it to meteorological agencies to incorporate into their various models. But FLYHT is looking to expand on that. About 5 years ago, we started to collect relative humidity data, which is the gold value. That is the top value that you can record and provide to the weather agencies. That relative humidity data is not, though, natively captured by an aircraft. You have to put an extra sensor on the aircraft to get that data. So about 5 years ago, we purchased Panasonic Aviation. That came along with the TAMDAR probe that provided that relative humidity. And a couple of years ago, we bought a better sensor that we're looking to expand with called the WVSS. What's the addressable market for these types of things? And if we look at those three categories again, you can see from the technology obsolescence side, we have a very large market. There's an incumbent product out there that records information throughout the course of the flight and transmits that data to the ground when the flight is over. That product is limited to the 2G, 3G, and LTE networks. That means that an airline today looking to go into the future is already behind. They're behind if they consider that product. Those products are going to go dark when those networks disappear. 5G is the way to move forward, and that forward-looking approach, 6G, whatever is going to come beyond that. There are roughly 25,000 aircraft in that market space, and if you consider 30,000 per aircraft for the hardware to go on that airplane, that's a $750 million opportunity. We look at 20% of that market, we're talking 150 million. Then you've got the ability to do something with the data. You've got the ability to do something with all that information that is transmitted off the aircraft down to the ground. And that's where FLYHT typically aims for between $500 and $700 recurring revenue per month per aircraft. And if we look at that over the course of 25,000 aircraft over a 20-year lifespan for the airplane, it's a $3 billion opportunity. It's such a large volume of data, and so much operational information can be gathered from that information, from that data. Again, 20% of that, 600 million opportunity at 20% market share. It's a significant opportunity for us. And that lines up very nicely with the SaaS opportunities that FLYHT is moving towards. That's the direction we're moving. We're moving towards that. We want the hardware revenue. but hardware becomes the enabler for the SaaS opportunity. When we look at the weather solution side, there's an interesting observation here, and you see the flags of those various countries. FLYHT had tried to sell the weather information that we were collecting from the aircraft to the airlines. It was a difficult sell, right? The airlines aren't exactly built to absorb that kind of raw data from the aircraft, from the relative humidity data that's captured, and use it in their operation. The market are the meteorological agencies around the world. In the US, that's NOAA. In Great Britain, that is UK Met. In Canada, it's Environment Canada. These are the market. That's where we sell the data. And 2 weeks ago, FLYHT press released that we have our first contract for the WVSS-II sensor with UK Met. It's the start of what we expect to be a very large opportunity. So there are multiple WVSS-II sensor opportunities when you take them over. When you consider $5 million per year across those different agencies over the course of 20 years, it's another $100 million opportunity. But there's something significantly better than that, and that is the OEM opportunity. Weather data is being recognized as the second most aircraft-based weather data is recognized as the second most valuable set of data inputs to the weather models, behind satellite imagery being number one. With that, we think that there's an OEM opportunity. FLYHT has experience with OEM opportunities working with Airbus, doing our AFIRS installations directly through them. And we think there's an opportunity to get up to 800 sensors per year OEM line fit. It's where we want to go. When we talk about the various software solutions, it's important to recognize that the AFIRS Edge is giving us a new advantage in this space. The AFIRS Edge is our third generation AFIRS unit. It's one with a 5G capability, but it's got all the other capabilities as well that we've developed. So there's that real-time analysis of the aircraft data, but we've expanded the product to be able to incorporate information from third parties as well. So now we're not just limited to aircraft data. We can bring in reservation system data. We can bring in flight planning data. We can bring in the actual weather data that we're helping to support, the weather data from the forecast. FLYHT has two forms of the AFIRS Edge. So to support these software solutions, we've got the little picture there in the corner is the AFIRS Edge flange mount. FLYHT is aggressively pursuing the turboprop market, which is a little bit different than the Boeing and the Airbus market. But they needed a smaller version of the AFIRS Edge, and this flange product is the one that does that. It allows us to install in those slightly smaller aircraft. The other version of the AFIRS Edge is the 4MCU. 4MCU is just a definition of the size. It's an industry definition of the size, and that's an important distinction because that means that the incumbent product, the one that's going to go end of life when the 2G, 3G LTE networks disappear, it's understood that you pull that product out of the aircraft and you know the exact size, the form, fit, and function that needs to be replaced. There's no secret there. There's no intellectual property that's being infringed upon. It is simply a replacement of one box with the new AFIRS Edge product that fits that spot in the aircraft. That means that the installation on the aircraft can be done we talk about doing it in 5 minutes. I think it's more like 30. It's not going to be done in 5. But it is a plug-and-play replacement. And that is very, very important because the installation, doing it from scratch can take a couple hundred hours to actually complete. So the AFIRS Edge product is providing us with the basis for the software solutions that we're going to continue to expand. Across the top there, you see on the airborne side, we have something called the wireless QAR. That's the recording of the black box data. The AID is simply the aircraft interface device that is taking that real-time data, pushing it to the flight deck so that the iPads that the pilots are using on the flight deck can receive information. And then a whole host of other applications that can be developed. But FLYHT is also doing significant work on the ground. We have something called JetBridge. JetBridge is the expansion of those SaaS opportunities that we're developing. On the ground is where we do the analysis of the data, where we do the presentation of the data back to the airlines in a way that they can use the information. I've talked a bit about the weather solutions. This is turning out to be a really large part of FLYHT's operation. We recently signed that contract with UK Met. We believe that that will be a catalyst to help us get into other airlines or into other weather agencies. The WVSS water vapor sensor system, it plays a really important role in turning those regular aircraft-based observations into something that's really special. Really special being the regular data with the relative humidity. These ABOs need to be transmitted in real time, which means that we typically will sell an AFIRS Edge or an AFIRS 228 at the same time. It's more hardware sales, and it gives the airlines opportunities to do additional things with that data by getting it off in real time. ABOs are fantastic in that they need to be recorded and transmitted quickly, right? And an aircraft-based observation that is 3 hours old is not of any value to a model at NOAA. It needs to be done in real time, relatively quickly. And it also means that because they're always out of date, the airlines, the weather agencies need more. So it's just a continuous cycle of being able to supply that information to the weather models. Mentioned that it typically helps sell the AFIRS Edge or the AFIRS 228. And there's an important environmental impact that needs to be considered with this relative humidity information. We all know about contrails that aircraft generate, and I think what you're going to see over the next couple of years is that contrail generation is going to be identified as being almost or slightly worse, more detrimental to the environment than the actual greenhouse gases that are emitted from the engine. Contrail generation introduces a level of cloud in the atmosphere that reflects heat back down to the ground. And as aircraft fly through those regions of air where the contrails are heavily being generated, it has a significant warming impact. We'll see over the next couple of years the evidence of this as it rolls out. But the value, the data that is needed to make sure that aircraft are not flying through these regions is the relative humidity. That is the product that we are building. That's the product that we've got with the WVSS-II. So contrail avoidance is going to become a big part of the work that FLYHT is dealing with. If we look at the potential for the AFIRS Edge and our weather products, so when we take the annual Edge and weather product SaaS potential, the graph on the right shows 5,000 cumulative installs going from 24 up to 28. That represents 20% of the market that I was talking about. And if we look at that range of around $500 to $700 per month per tail, we see that we're talking about $74 to $103 million over the course of that 5-year period. And that's only with a 20% uptake. That's if we capture 20% of that market that is going to be affected by the changing of the 2G, 3G LTE networks. It's lining up very nicely for FLYHT. One of the things that FLYHT did during the COVID years, and you'll see it in the next graph, one of the things that we did during COVID was rather than stop our research and development, we actually doubled down. We took that opportunity to recognize that there were things that were changing in the industry, like the 5G opportunity. And during COVID, when the airlines were really struggling and our revenues were down, we actually invested heavily in research and development, leading us to having the new AFIRS Edge product at the time that the airlines are starting to ramp up. It's lining up very nicely. We are going to be first to market with that plug-in compatible product. Nobody is going to have a 5G replacement product that lines up as quickly as FLYHT does. We have that one. We'll be there ready to go. And that AFIRS Edge product is what is going to drive the SaaS opportunities, right? So the hardware sales, as great as they are, they just give us that opportunity for access to the data. Our contracts with the airlines allow us to use that data, give it back to them in a meaningful way. It's a great model. This is a long-term track record showing our SaaS revenues. The first arrow on the left shows kind of the build-up of our SaaS revenues relative to our other revenues over 3 years. And you see that we reached 2.7 million per quarter with the SaaS revenues, and then COVID hit. And that gap in the middle where you see the drop is the COVID years, really difficult time. That's when FLYHT invested in our research and development to get us through to the Edge product. What we've seen over the last 2 years, since about Q3 or Q1 of 22, is that as the aircraft are coming back, as we're selling more product, the SaaS revenues are starting to come back up. We're now back at the same level that we were before COVID hit. We don't see that increase changing. We see it changing. We see it going up. It's the opportunity that we've been waiting for, and the airlines are finally being able to respond. They're finally getting back to their regular schedules, the schedules that they had that they were at before COVID. So it's a really it's great that FLYHT has actually made it through that time, and we're coming out really strong. Try and summarize a little bit. We look at that addressable market. You see the addressable market in the hardware, the software, and the weather. We're extremely well positioned to capture this. The total addressable market on the hardware side, we genuinely see it as $750 million. The lifetime SaaS is $3 billion, and the weather opportunity, especially if we consider the OEM opportunity, we see that as I think $600 million. Looking at 20%, which we think is quite doable, that would be $150 million on the hardware side. Can't do the math. $600 million on the SaaS side, and whatever on that, and continuing through the weather. The 3G LTE obsolescence is huge. And I've mentioned it a few times. I want to keep pushing on it because it is. It's probably the biggest opportunity that FLYHT has had in our 24-year history. We genuinely see this as something that we are prepared for, that the competition isn't. We are ready. We have the first 5G product. It's available. It is out there. We're selling it. We signed contracts with FLYHT Airlines on it. We're ready to move forward with it. We have that first mover advantage. It's the right product at the right time. And this is all supporting our SaaS revenues, right? Our effort to go away, or not just go away, but to expand on the hardware sales and to be able to move forward with the SaaS revenues. We want to get more deeply into that part of the business. We think this is very scalable. We don't think that there's a concern with the adoption of the Edge. Upfront hardware revenues are going to be followed by the SaaS revenues. It gives us those upsell opportunities. I haven't talked about the team that FLYHT has. Over the last year and a half, FLYHT has taken four of the sales team from the largest incumbent. I've talked about that incumbent product that's on board the aircraft that we can replace very quickly. We've taken 4 of the salespeople from that organization. They've decided to join FLYHT. And the reason they decided to join FLYHT after long careers with that other company is because they recognize that the 5G product is the way to move forward. They saw the end of the line with the product that was available, and they liked what they saw with FLYHT. They've moved over with us, and that brought just such a shift in the way that we deal with airlines around the world. FLYHT was able to deal much more easily with the tier ones, with those people in our organization, with those people representing us in the history and the track record and the contacts they have. We moved very quickly into a different level with different types of airlines around the world. We see these change catalysts. We think they're numerous. We think there are a lot. We think there are a lot. We see this as giving us an accelerated growth and a jump start to the evaluation, something that's going to help us move forward. That was what I had. I think we have 5 minutes or just under 5 minutes left. So maybe a couple minutes for some questions. Or one, yeah.
Quick question on your stock price. How much of the growth is accounted for by the acquisition?
I don't know the exact percent. Some of it, not a lot. Yeah.
For traction together, model, together, how's that in the moment? Our airlines
Yeah, it's a good thought. The traction is really coming along nicely. FLYHT has developed a product called Clearport. Clearport is a turn management system. So, up until Clearport, FLYHT had focused primarily on dealing with aircraft in the air. Operations when they push back from the gate to the time that they arrive at the gate at their destination. But the turn of an aircraft is equally as important for airlines maintaining their schedules and being able to operate efficiently. So ClearPort is a SaaS product that we've developed that allows airlines to track the actual state of the turn. So from the time the aircraft pulls into the gate to the time it pushes back, we can provide them with information on things like how the luggage is being offloaded and loaded, when the passengers are coming on and off, whether the catering trucks have been there, whether the fuel truck has been. So we're seeing great uptake in that. It's part of the contract with FLYHT, with FLYHT Airlines, and we expect several others to take that. ClearPort is a really good example of a product that does very, very well with the additional data collected by the AFIRS Edge and by third parties, things like reservation information and passenger information being sent into it. But it can also run completely independent of an AFIRS unit. Doesn't run as well, doesn't provide as much information to the airline, but it's a SaaS product that operates without an edge. Well, yeah.
Could you describe the competitive landscape?
Yeah, maybe on two fronts, just really quickly. On the 5G side, we don't know of any competition right now that is building a 5G capable wireless QAR transfer product. It will come. The market is too large and the opportunity is too great for that not to happen at some point. We have a product in the market right now that deals with it. So we know that we were first to market with it because nobody else is talking about it. And when we talk to airlines about it, we're not dealing with any competition there. It will come in the next, I would say, 3 or 4 years. I think that the approach that FLYHT took during COVID really let us move forward, come out at this point ahead of the game there. On the weather sensor side, I don't know of anybody that is actively working on WVSS, relative humidity type sensor information. Again, it's a big, good market. I expect that it is there. But right now, we're the ones that provide it. Yeah.
Can your weather sensor software application apply free?
I don't know. Are you talking about like on chips and things? I think the sensor would operate well there. It's not something that we're actively considering. Yeah. Aircraft-based observations are fantastic because they give that perception or perspective up through the atmosphere and back down as the aircraft descends. And that's the easiest thing to incorporate into the various models around the world.
You mentioned turboprop. Is it also?
It possibly is. I know there would be vibration characteristics that are slightly different on helicopters, and I can imagine that might be a problem with a laser-based system. I don't know. Yeah. Helicopters also don't fly up as high, meaning that the aircraft are going to provide a better sounding. Yeah. I think our time is up. Yeah, it is. Thank you. Thank you for your interest and your time. I hope to see some of you tomorrow. Appreciate it.